start to the game for G2, but in typical SK Telecom fashion, they find the fights they need to get the comeback mounted and smash through for a dominating conclusion here to game 1 of the series.
Yeah, you start Faker off 0-4-0 with a 20 or 30 CS lead, 2 levels above him. Meh. Doesn't matter.
I mean, it's got to be so frustrating playing against them. It's like, what do you have to do to beat these guys? In some of the games, it just feels so ridiculous. It's like Faker's 0-4, you have a good gold lead, then 27 minutes in, you look up, they have 2 Infernals, they have Baron, and they're up 5K.
And yeah, it was so many. I mean, this was effectively a solo kill to start things up. Sure, there was the assist for the shield, but nothing more. And during that flash being down, there was 2 more visitations, as we're going to see. And again, the laning phase, Perks versus Faker. We were talking about this as being a potential point to attack, and attack they did.
And this pulls 2 things together, right? We talked about the jungle and Trick needing to step up. He did it yesterday. He's doing it again today. And then to your point, Jeff, the only way you can play against Faker is with no fear, and that's how Perks walked into this matchup today.
But the scary part is, Dash, that they did both. It's 2 for 2 in what we expected them to do, and yet the result didn't go their way. And the only thing that wasn't working for them in the early game was the gold lead. It was there, but it was never 5,000. It was never 7,000. It was always touching distance, and you always thought we might be 1 fight away from this alternative.
I mean, when you consider the fact that 4 kills is relatively worth about 1,000 gold, and that was really the only gold lead that G2 had, it shows how much work SKT is doing on the rest of the map in order to keep themselves within striking distance. And then, as was mentioned, we got to go ahead and push forward to our Acer replay here in game 1. SKT picking up 4 kills in the mid lane, plus the Baron off of a beautiful engagement.
Yeah, and I think G2's mindset was right for most of this. This is kind of how it started because they expended a lot onto Huni to get this kill in the top lane, but Rumble ultimate down as another fight is happening in the mid lane, which is quite dangerous since SKT plays the overall map so well. Perks thought he had something here, but Bang had other ideas.
And Bang went man mode here. He went super aggressive, flashing in, reminding me of Prey back at Worlds, getting into the front line, and now everyone's out of position. As you say, a lot of big tools are down for G2.
Yeah, and this is a composition for G2 that has to work as a unit. With the Ivern protecting the Caitlyn, you have pressure coming out, and you have this front line. It all just fell apart so quickly, and the fact that Faker and Peanut were still alive at the end meant they could take an easy Baron.
Yeah, and I think one thing that G2 can take away from this is they did play with fearlessness, but they did not have scaling advantage on SKT from a team composition perspective, because once that fight happened and Baron went over, even then it was about 2,000 gold, but you could feel it was over because they did not have a way of starting fights, they couldn't get through Huni, and they couldn't deal with Faker's damage.
I also just think that Tahm Kench into Zyra is such a punishing lane. Like, that's so hard for G2 to really get an advantage there, and you saw Bang playing very well. I mean, the damage discrepancy, not something you would expect to see this large, and largely in part because they bullied them in lane. They got big XP advantages, and Sven was not that late game threat that you would have hoped for.
I mean, the item timings got there. We saw Sven on Infinity Edge, Hurricane. I could see fights that would be won by G2 where the game was at, but the problem was, both those clips, it was never the 5-man utility ball on top of Caitlyn doing free damage. The game turned on 2 disassociated fights, and then an arrow onto Sven in the mid lane when Tahm Kench wasn't around. So the utility wasn't in place, and it was never the true 5v5 that they drafted for.
Yeah, I mean, that's evident in the fact that Bang tripled Sven's damage there, because he had a frontline Sven not really able to get all those auto attacks out during the fight.
Exactly. G2 didn't draft for a 5v5. SKT drafted for the 5v5. That's with the tank and with the Cassiopeia, and they were punished for it early because G2 punished to siege and get poke off. That's what the Rumble Jace absolutely is. So they never got the siege set up for sure, and then once that happened and you fall behind with that type of composition, you're going to get crushed by SKT, which is generally why I feel like for G2 to have the success against SKT, they have the fearlessness in the early game. They need to win scaling in the draft somehow, because that's how they've found any success in this tournament, is with that scaling composition.
I also think they need some initiative to go along with that, right, within the picks themselves. So we saw a couple times good Tahm Kench to get behind somebody and start a small skirmish, get 1 kill. But with that 1 to 2k gold advantage that they sat on for about 10 minutes, we never saw the ability for them to start a fight like SKT could with an Ash Arrow.
And I mean, part of the problem with that was, the Infernal was the obvious point where you would want to create conflict with your gold lead, with your super strong mid laner. Unfortunately, Peanut snuck that away and really kind of denied that first easy objective where they perhaps could have challenged SKT, could have perhaps opened up a larger gold lead or some sort of subsequent advantage.
Right. But this is the challenge of playing against SKT, right? Because we talk about, well, we need them to have scaling. We need to have them the ability to scale.
Everything.
But if you have the ability to scale, it means you're weaker in the early game. And now you've got to have an impressive early game with weaker champions than SKT. So with G2 moving into game 2 here, I mean, I think heads should be held massively high here for that squad, having come out and done what they did already on the Rift. But how do you attack game 2 knowing you had an advantage, knowing you had, kind of that path to victory planned out there and then weren't able to close on it?
I mean, you have to dot the I's and cross the T's. They got 3 kills in the mid lane, but we never saw them invading, taking out control wards. The next step wasn't there, and it needs to be step 1, step 2, step 3 to get the action done against SKT. And making that adaptation in one game is going to be hard, but it's what you have to do to beat SKT.
I liked the confidence that G2 played with, and they need to build on that. But we obviously got to see who they are playing against. SKT is who we thought they were, and they dominated at the end of that game.
Mithy said, you can't make errors against this team. You can't even afford to trade against them, because if they stay within, a certain amount of gold differential, then they will strike back. Now, SK Telecom have started out the series with a win. We'll see if G2 can regroup and tie up the series after the break.
Senhoras e senhores, deem boas-vindas aos finalistas do Mid-Season Invitational 2017.
Mid lane. Here comes the play into Baker. Exhausted. Zon keeps away from the wall. Not quick enough to slow. There's a flash to chase. First blood into Perks. Oh my goodness. And now mid lane again. Oh, the CC is there. There's really no way out. 2-0 for Perks. His lane kingdom.
By now, my wall is actually here. Sarah and Lee are both side. Okay, that. Nice.
And God is feeding right now before your eyes. Now it's up, and they just shot him. And that's repeated against the wall. Easy kick into Q. There's going to be the kill picked off. The first one in for SKT. It's here. Around the back. The knockup turns into Baker. The barrier doesn't even matter. Kill comes through to expect. Now it's up, and they just shot him. And that's going to be repeated against the wall. Easy kick into Q. There's going to be the kill picked off. The first one in for SKT. Peanut flash in the chase. Going to get that one picked up. Bang, next one to the block, but he's going to survive it. Mooney flashing out of the Nexus door. It's open to take.